Dementors are probably one of the scariest creatures in fiction. And I think I figured out how they are made, and it doesn't make things any better. Weirdly enough, too, I think the secret is Horcruxes. So if you like Harry Potter theories and just Harry Potter content, this is the right place. Make sure to subscribe so you can get more. But I'm also going to start doing other fandoms, such as Percy Jackson and Lord of the Rings, which will be extra bonus videos that I do on other days of the week. So if you like that kind of stuff, make sure to subscribe. So anyway, let's get back into this whole idea about Dementors and how maybe they were created. Let's talk about what we know about Dementors. Like, we all know the basics. They're hooded, cloaked figures that may or may not fly, depending on movie or book. The book kind of has them gliding, but they're wearing large hooded cloaks, so we're not really sure if they fly. In the movies, they just fly all over the place, so believe what you may. We also know they're predominantly in Azkaban on an island, but that's not where they originate from. There is mythological stories about a dark wizard who created the Dementors because he was spurned by a lover, and he basically told the Dementors to destroy the town, and none of the wizards in the town were able to cast a Patronus, but then a little boy came up, cast a Patronus, and it was a tiny mouse, and it scared away all of the Dementors, proving that it's not size that matters. It's about the effort put behind your work. But yeah, that's kind of just a fairy tale about how, good will triumph over evil, and, teach you that, good feelings will eventually get you out of the depression. Cool. Awesome. But one of the other big things, there's a lot of stuff we don't know about Dementors, and that the story doesn't even give us information about, such as Dementors can't be destroyed. We know we can dispel them with Patroni, but that only just kind of scares them off. It doesn't fully destroy a Dementor. So a Dementor can't be destroyed. Cool. We don't know where exactly Dementors come from. They found them on Azkaban, but also in Order of the Phoenix, there was fog because they were breeding. How do they breed? Nobody knows. And one thing that we don't ever get answered, which is a huge thing that we should probably have answered, is what happens to an empty vessel after it has its soul removed? Because we see, or at least hear, about Barty Crouch Jr. getting his soul removed, but we don't know what they did after that. Did they just take the empty husk and throw it into Azkaban? What happens to other people who are given the kiss? What would have happened to Harry? What would have happened to Sirius? We don't know what happens. What if that's how a Dementor is created? What if, not having a soul and just the continued living, they just throw a shroud over you, you kind of decay, turn into a corpse-like creature that has no soul, you kind of just completely rot away, but you're forced to live forever, eternally, because you have no soul, but you're tied to your earthly form. This sounding familiar? I hope so, because it sounds like a Horcrux. You remove part of your soul, so when you die, you cannot leave Earth because your soul is still tied to the mortal realm. So then you stay alive, because your soul, part of your soul cannot leave. But what if having your full soul removed from your body turns you into a Dementor? And because of that idea, Harpo the Foul came up with the idea of a Horcrux. Because we know Harpo the Foul is from ancient Greece, but a Acristus is a more recent addition to wizarding history, about 300 plus years before the modern day. So 1600s, maybe 1500s. We'll go a little bit earlier. But a Acristus is a dark wizard who would basically play as a siren and bring muggles into his island, crash their ships, and use the muggles to experiment on. After he died, the enchantments disappeared on the island, and what was left was his castle and a bunch of Dementors. And of course, they were afraid, hey, we could destroy this island, but then what would happen to the Dementors? Because there are more Dementors than we have ever seen. So here comes the Minister of Magic and goes, we should use it as a prison. Good job. He was experimenting with muggles. Do we know? No. The Dementors were apparently the least horrifying thing on that island, it said in the Pottermore article that people who returned from the island said there were horrible things, and the only thing that they could feel like they could talk about is the Dementors. And that's really the least of the horrible atrocities that apparently occurred on the island of Azkaban. But let's go back to Harpo the Foul. Harpo the Foul is maybe seen as the original creator of the Horcrux, because we don't know where Dementors come from, but the key between a Horcrux and a Dementor that binds them together is the soul. Did Harpo the Foul also create the Dementors? In experiments of trying to create immortality, experimented on wizards and muggles and tried to pull their soul out to get them to live forever, found that they could live forever, but they ended up turning into Dementors. And the experiments that Christus did were furthering that idea. But Harpo the Foul figured out if you could figure out how to split the soul, leave part of the soul in the body, and then remove the soul and put it into a vessel, then it could keep you connected without turning you into a Dementor. But pulling parts of your soul took pieces of you with it, i.e. Voldemort slowly looking less human and just more skeletal, like a Dementor. See how the pieces are all falling together? And just a bonus theory is, what if ancient magic, all this ancient magic, it's talked about in Hogwarts Legacy, that's the big plot point of Hogwarts Legacy, being able to take this ancient magic and imbue it into objects, but it's just pure energy, are actually souls that have been removed from people. Because what do we see in Hogwarts Legacy but someone who can control ancient magic being able to remove parts of other people, whether it be bad memories or even just their entire self, but being able to remove stuff from them and harness it into ancient magic. What if it all ties together? If you've made it this far, please make sure to subscribe and check out more of my theories up here. It'd be greatly appreciated. I hope you really like this. So we're gonna wrap it all up and tie it and put it all into pieces. Harpo the Foul was experimenting with removing pieces of the soul and putting them into objects. His great discovery is figuring out how to rip the soul apart, which is a very atrocious act. And certain other things, there's theories that cannibalism is involved, or, we know murder is involved, but other dark things that, the editor read about J.K. Rowling's concept of how to make a Horcrux, and it made him vomit. And it's that's a cool, urban legend, and we don't really know if that was actually what happened, or that's just kind of a marketing story, hey, this is a great story anecdotally to tell. But then we get to a Christus who experiments on muggles and sees if he could probably remove their soul and have the same magical effect with being able to pull ancient magic, which is more powerful, and harness that, and probably created a ton of Dementors, which creates Azkaban. But all in all, the idea of a Dementor being created is a human body without a soul becomes a Dementor. If you take part of the soul and put it into a vessel, that is a Horcrux. So are Dementors just broken Horcruxes? Or are Horcruxes what a Dementor is to the husk, which then turns into a Dementor itself? That's for you to decide in the comments, and that's it for me today. Stay marvelous and Nox.